All right. So, so I'm a postdoctoral researcher at UW-Madison. I've been part of the Strabo team for a couple of years. And my kind of main contribution was that I was the designer of the second iteration of StraboSpot, which I want to show you today. And then, Doug's been instrumental in helping get that development as well as, of course, our programming team. So what I have up here is the StraboSpot 2 app. You can download this from the App Store. And it is currently an iPad OS only application. We are very nearly done porting it over to Android. And so it will be available for Android tablets as well in the coming months. So I'm a structural geologist and I've used this quite a bit in the field. When I go out into the field, take an iPad, it makes for really good kind of map interaction. And I just wanted to give you a little tour through the app and show you some of the core functionality. So StraboSpot 2 comes built in with a couple of base maps. We use the Mapbox maps. So you can do a topo map, and along the left-hand side, right here, you see this layers button, and you can switch between different map types on the fly. So I can go to satellite and it reloads with the satellite imagery. And all of the maps here, before you go out into the field, when you're still connected to the internet, you can download for offline use really easily by going over to this 3 buttons and saying save map for offline use. So this is a really nice way you can kind of prepare all the imagery, the map imagery that you want before you go into the field. You can also upload kind of GeoTIFF files, so image files that have a geospatial component to them, that they're georeferenced to the StraboSpot website. And then in the app, connect that GeoTIFF up and download it. So here's an example of a hillshade that I computed from a DEM in a GIS software, export it as a GeoTIFF, and I can upload it right into Strabo. So we have come up with kind of a very flexible platform, so you can get whatever geologic maps or imagery you want before you go into the field. And just like the other maps, you can download these for offline use. Okay, so that's kind of the base maps, and I'll show a little bit about how those custom maps get incorporated here, but I just want to finish giving you a tour around the app. So on the left-hand side, you have some 3 buttons: the map layer, controlling your symbology, that's the star. So which symbols, as you generate field stations or spots, which symbols you actually want to show, whether you want to color those by geologic unit, say. And then there's some map actions, like measuring the distance on a map, or zooming out to the extent of all the spots that you have in a project. On the bottom left, you can tap that button to show your current location. Obviously, I'm not out here on this island, so that would just show my location in Madison, Wisconsin right now. So I won't tap that. On the bottom right, this is where you can create point, line, or polygon spots. And again, spots are areas of interest that you can add data to. So you can add data to either a point, you can create a line. So for example, for a contact or a fault, you might want to create a line spot. And then you can create polygon spots to describe things if you want to outline some feature, for example. So that's how you create spots. And in the upper right-hand corner, this is the notebook view. And that is where, when you select a spot, so I've created this one spot, station 1. If I then tap on that notebook, it opens up and shows me all the data that I have, as well as some information about that location. I can edit the spot name. And then in the bottom of the notebook view, these are all the places where I can add data to this spot. So I can add a geologic unit, I can take notes, I can add measurements, I can take a photo, a tag, I can add samples. And there's so many different types of data that different communities want to add that we've added. If you tap on this more button, you can control which data types you want to show up. So maybe you're not a structural geologist, so you don't care about 3D structures, and maybe you don't want to take measurements. And that can really clean up that notebook data entry for you. So that's the notebook. I'll get back a little bit to actually demoing adding data, but I want to show you the last part of the app is this little house icon in the top left corner. And if I tap that, it opens up kind of a settings and preferences, but also ways to summarize your data. So at the top, you can see it shows information about your Strabo account, information about the active project. So I before this seminar, I started a project in the app, and then tools to upload, backup, and export your device or your project. And so if I go to upload, backup, and export, you can see there's a few options. You can upload your project to StraboSpot. That requires an internet connection, and that uploads it to that website, strabospot.org, that you can then log in and look at that project on your desktop. You can also, and I do this in the field, every half day or so, you can back up the project to the device. And when you do that, it backs it up to a folder in the file system that you can then access. You can share, you can airdrop it to another device just for safekeeping, so that you, in the field, you can constantly back up your data in case something were to happen to your iPad, or if some bug made it so that your iPad crashed. So that's an important feature. It really makes field work. You can kind of rest assured as you go that your data is being saved and stored somewhere off the device. And then the next thing is we have attributes. So this allows you to kind of view a list of all your spots, so all your field stations. And when I click on that list, there's only one, right? But it has a photo in it, and it actually has a little icon that shows you the type of data that is in each spot. And you can view your spots by the order you collected them. You made those observations. You can also view them by the map extent currently in the iPad. So this is useful when you have a lot of spots and you're just looking for that one spot and you remember approximately where it is and you want to find it. So you can zoom in to the exact area. But notice if I go somewhere where that spot isn't in the map, then there's no spots there. So that's a really nice way to kind of filter through your data visually. And you can also view your spots as kind of the order that you've last viewed them, that you've last opened them in the notebook. And the exact same thing you can do for images that you've taken or samples that you've taken. If you want to view just the geologic units that you have or tags that you've made, you can view all of those in a list. And I use these all the time in the field because they help sort through big, complicated data sets. And the next section, custom maps. So this is where you add those custom maps like this hillshade. And adding a custom map is really easy. Again, you need to do this when you're online. But you hit add custom map. And then we have a few types. I usually use Strabo My Maps because it's by far the simplest, but we also can interact with the Mapbox Studio maps that you can go on. Mapbox Studio is a website where you can create really detailed custom maps with different layering. So we support that as well. Strabo My Maps is really easy because you just upload a GeoTIFF to the website, and then you can go over to that website. And here's all the maps that I've uploaded on my StraboSpot account. You see this Adak Island hillshade here, and I just click this copy button on my iPad and then go back to Strabo, paste it into this map details and give it a name. And hit save. And now that is saved as a custom map. So you'll see I now have a custom base map DEN. So that's the map I just loaded. So really, really easy functionality. The third thing, the next section, there are some preferences, not too many, but the one I want to focus on is naming conventions. So you can have it automatically name your spots and automatically name your samples as you collect them, so that it counts upwards as you collect more samples. So I've just done a spot prefix of station and a sample prefix of AT for this example. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is that when you add data, so I'll open up this same station one. One of the things you can do is take photos or import photos from your library or create a sketch. So I've preloaded a photo in here. And if I tap on that photo, here's some layering of different ash beds. And you can annotate this photo. If you click on this lower right-hand button, you can annotate it. If you click on the A, you can add some metadata, like a description or a caption associated with that photo. And so if I tap annotate, then I am presented with this drawing thing that I can freehand draw lines on, I can write on. And when I hit save, it saves it as a copy. So you still have your original image, and then you have your annotated image. Any image that you create, whether it's a sketch or whether it's a photo, you can also toggle this image as base map. And this is a really powerful way, I think, especially useful for the Tephra community. And if I click view as image base map, it loads that image into the map. And so what I can do is I can start treating this like a map, and I can add spots to the map. So if I tap on this, the point spot button, then I can tap anywhere on the photo and add a spot to that photo. So this I'll just name AT 2607. So I know that I'm going to collect a sample at this spot. I can do things like add a rock type. So maybe it is I'll go to volcanic rock type, and maybe I'll say tough. And there's a lot of detail that you can put into that description. So this is where the vocabulary that Doug was talking about comes into play. We have a lot of vocabulary that we've gotten from the community, and it's a kind of ever-growing vocabulary as we've added petrology and sedimentology. So there's a lot of descriptive terms in here that you can identify rocks as. So I can save a rock. I can also add a sample. So I'll say AT 2607. And then if I go and I tap on that sample in the notebook view, I can add even more detail, like the main sampling purpose. I can add the material type, whether you collected an intact rock, and Tephra is on there too. And so you can imagine that if you're sampling up this little section, that this kind of thing would be really useful to preserve those relationships. So we call these image base maps. And once you save an image as an image base map, in the settings, you can go, and one of the things under maps is image base maps. And so all the images that you have that you're using as a base map to add samples, spots, and samples to are easily accessible.
Hey, Nick.
Yep.
I'd like to interject. I think this is also a great place to use the Polygon. Because sometimes with Tephra, we want to know exactly like where throughout a layer a sample came from, or whether it was the whole layer or the upper half. And you can
Sure.
actually directly annotate that onto the image with using polygons. And then so
Yep.
somebody could open up the data set and see that sample one came from this upper half or this little darker layer, or all of that would be there, and it would be completely visual. You can see exactly how everything fits together.
So if I tap on the polygon here, I can just freehand draw, you know, oh, I ended up taking the sample from right here, and then end the draw, and there it is. That's a spot on the image. Yep. Doug, is there anything else that that you think I should include in the demo that I've
I think
skipped?
I think that's good. I'll have some additional stuff that will come in here soon, but I think that gives people a good flavor about the flexibility and ease of use.
Yeah. One thing that I will say is all of these spots retain a real world coordinate. So, you know, one thing that people might be concerned about is that, okay, so it's located on this picture, but does that mean that I lose my GPS, you know, where it is on the map? And we actually, so if I go into this spot, you see at the top of the notebook, it gives 2 coordinates. It gives real world coordinates that's inherited from the spot that this image is contained within. It also gives pixel coordinates on this image. So both the real world coordinates kind of travel with that spot as when you go to export your data in a Excel file or a shapefile or something. Should we?
I think we can take a couple questions now, if that's what you want to do, Steve.
Yes, we have a lot of questions that have come in
Okay.
on the Q&A, and a bunch of those are being taken care of live right now. Let's see. Should we promote? Let's see. There's some here about integrating data from other kinds of sources. Maybe you could comment on how that could work, or dealing with a little bit more customization and getting things in and out.
Sure. So I'm just catching up on the question. So, like, can you add fields? Yeah. So one thing that we kind of have skimmed over that is probably the most customizable part of the app is what we call tags. So tags are a either a geologic unit or a conceptual feature. So let's say that you're sampling around at different places, but you keep seeing the same layer over and over again that you want to sample. You can actually make a tag that is that sample that you can just add to all those spots so that they all get kind of grouped together. So I can, sorry, my iPad's asleep. So I can come here, hit the tag button in the notebook and create a new tag. And so here are your kind of options. You can, so I'll do a conceptual tag and, you know, a marker layer, for example, and then you can just add freehand notes about what you're doing. If there's some piece of data that you want to, so the name is required. So now I can go and I can tag that marker layer at lots of places. You can say other and have any kind of data that you want in there. If you do want to create your own kind of feature, you can, over here in other features, you can just add a feature. And this is going to kind of customize a kind of data that you might want to input. So it's not, I would say that it's not as advanced as some kind of GIS systems where you create this entire form that's completely customized for yourself, but there are ways to get that data in here. One more thing that you can do is in notes, you can actually create a template of notes beforehand. So if you have some measurement that you just want to note down every time, so for example, you know, I'm just gonna use this example. There is a place for grain size in the vocabulary, but if there wasn't, you could say grain size, save that template, and now every time you open up a new note in a new spot, grain size will be there, and you can just type the grain size. So this is a kind of a quick and dirty way. If you haven't found a good way to enter the data that you want to collect, you can pre-create a bunch of kind of lines in the notes where you just fill that in manually.
And the notes you can see the notes in the data system, and those come out with the field book view and get exported as well.
Okay, I see this question: is Strabo 2 now equipped with the export to CSV option from the iPad that Strabo 1 had? And
no,
yeah,
that's
so,
being worked on right now.
Yep.
We'll show that a little bit later too.
So for Tephra studies in the field, and if you have an iPad, which StraboSpot is better to use, the 1 or 2? I think the one thing that it depends whether you're doing is if you're wanting to create stratigraphic columns in the field, then you need to still use Strabo 1. I believe all of the other functionality is in Strabo 2, and it is quite a bit more user-friendly. And at this point, Strabo 1 is on an older framework, and at some point in the future, it's going to be discontinued. We don't have good control over that, but we haven't mentioned this. The data structure behind Strabo 1 and Strabo 2 are identical. They are interoperable. Something that you create on Strabo 1, you can then open up on Strabo 2. Once you've uploaded it to the online database and download it. So, it's kind of up to you, whichever you find to be better. Knowing that Strabo 2 is the way that it's going to be in the future, because Strabo 1 is eventually going to stop being supported.
Yeah, the Strabo 2 and Strabo 1 will each read from the database. It doesn't matter what version you create in, but eventually Strabo 1 will go away.
Can the stratigraphic units be turned into a fence diagram? That is not something that we have built in, no.
No. They can be exported as CSV. You could scale them and prepare your own fence diagram, but not yet. Okay. Steve, what now?
All right. So do you have another segment to present?
We can, yeah, I have another PowerPoint, and then we have another demo. I can't remember if you took a break last week or just went straight through.
Well, how do you think the time is going for what you have remaining?
It's fine. Let's go ahead and go to the next PowerPoint then. That's fine. Time is going fine though. So Nick, can you bring up the next PowerPoint?
Yeah, just one second. I need to close the other PowerPoint.
Yep.
Looks like. Stop sharing. and full screen.
There should be yet a third PowerPoint, isn't there, or not?
There probably is. One sec.